The year is 1822. The setting is the unforgiving landscape of Maryland's eastern shore, a stark tableau of verdant fields masking an invisible cage. The air hangs thick, heavy with the sweat of forced labor and the unspoken terror of an enslaved existence. The brutal crack of a whip echoes, a constant, chilling reminder of the utter lack of freedom and the absolute power of the white masters. Families are routinely shattered, their bonds violently severed at the auction block, a harsh reality woven into the fabric of 19th century America. Araminta Ross, born into bondage. It is into this world, around 1822, that a girl named Araminta Minty Ross was born in Dorchester County, Maryland. Her life began in bondage on the plantation of Edward Brodess. She was the child of Harriet Green, a cook, and Benjamin Ben Ross, a lumberman. Minty was one of 9 children, all born enslaved, meaning their very existence was the property of others, destined to follow their parents into a life of involuntary servitude. Her childhood was characterized by unrelenting hardship. By the age of 5 or 6, she was already hired out to neighbors, performing domestic and field labor. These early years were marked by hunger, cold, and frequent vicious beatings. She was often separated from her mother and siblings, enduring the emotional trauma of early familial isolation, early courage, and enduring scars. Even as a young girl, Minty showed a fierce spirit and profound empathy. This courage, however, led to one of the most defining and damaging incidents of her life. When she was around 12 years old, she bravely intervened to protect another enslaved man who was attempting to escape from an overseer. In retaliation, the enraged overseer threw a heavy metal weight, a 2-pound scale weight, intending to hit the fugitive. Instead, the weight struck Minty in the head. This severe injury was nearly fatal and left her with a lifetime of debilitating effects, including narcolepsy, severe headaches, and dizzy spells. She would suddenly fall into a deep sleep, often multiple times a day. Despite this traumatic injury, or perhaps because of it, the incident served to strengthen her resolve and her faith, planting the seeds of the extraordinary woman she would become, a woman who would later be known as Harriet Tubman. The weight of her enslavement, compounded by the debilitating effects of her head injury and the terror of seeing her own sisters sold away, became unbearable. In 1849, after her owner Edward Brodess died, Harriet learned that she and her remaining siblings were likely to be sold and separated forever. This grim prospect became the catalyst for her decision to run. Her resolve was simple and absolute. She would be free or die. The perilous journey north. In September 1849, Harriet, along with 2 of her brothers, Ben and Henry, made their first attempt to escape. Fearing the dangers and the overwhelming risks, her brothers soon turned back, but Harriet, using the network of the Underground Railroad, a secretive web of safe houses and routes managed by abolitionists and freed people, pressed on alone. Her path was a solitary and treacherous one. She traveled almost entirely by night, navigating by the North Star and relying on an innate knowledge of the woods and waterways. Her journey took her through dense forests, across frigid rivers, and over miles of hostile territory in Delaware and Pennsylvania. Every shadow concealed a potential danger: slave catchers, armed patrols, and the ever-present threat of betrayal. She relied on the help of conductors and abolitionists who risked their own freedom to hide her in secret compartments, barns, and attics. The first breath of freedom. After a harrowing, weeks-long trek covering nearly 90 miles, Harriet finally crossed the invisible line that separated the slave state of Maryland from the free state of Pennsylvania. Imagine the silence, the cold dirt beneath her worn feet, suddenly giving way to the solid, tangible earth of freedom. She remembered the moment years later. I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person now that I was free. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. It was a moment of profound, world-altering joy. She was no longer Minty, the slave property. She was Harriet, a free woman. But in her heart, the initial rush of exhilaration was quickly tempered by the knowledge of those she had left behind. Her parents, her siblings, her husband, they were still trapped. The personal journey was over, but her life's true work was just beginning. She resolved, I was a stranger in a strange land, and my home, after all, was down in the old cabin quarters with the old folks and my brothers and sisters. Having tasted the air of freedom, Harriet could not stand the thought of her family and friends languishing in chains. She resolved to go back, again and again, utilizing the Underground Railroad, a name that conjured images of hidden tracks and stacks and stations, but was in reality a highly organized, secret network of abolitionists, former slaves, and safe houses stretching from the slave states up to Canada. The conductor known as Moses, Harriet Tubman, became the railroad's most famous agent, or conductor. Over a span of 10 years, 1850 to 1860, she made approximately 13 perilous return trips into the heart of slave country, personally guiding about 70 enslaved people, mostly her own family and trusted friends, to freedom. She also provided instruction and assistance to scores of others who successfully escaped on their own. Her reputation for success was so absolute that she earned the biblical nickname Moses, because, like the prophet, she led her people out of bondage. She proudly declared, "I was the conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger." Night escapes and constant danger. Every single mission was a deadly gamble. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 meant that even free states were no longer safe. Capture in the North meant immediate return to slavery. This forced Harriet to guide her passengers all the way to Canada. The journey was undertaken under the cloak of night, a terrifying silence broken only by the crunch of leaves and the distant, spine-chilling sound of slave catchers' dogs barking. Harriet, carrying a small pistol for protection and to prevent exhausted or terrified runaways from turning back and betraying the network, moved with the stealth and certainty of a seasoned soldier. One dark night, while leading a group through the swamps of Maryland, a patrol was heard closing in. The fugitives froze in terror. Harriet quickly ordered them to lie down in a freezing stream, submerging themselves until only their heads were above water, hidden by tall reeds. The slave hunters and their baying hounds passed so close they could hear the men's coarse laughter and the sniffing of the dogs, whose barks grew frantic near the bank. But Harriet's iron discipline and intimate knowledge of the land saved them. A massive bounty was eventually placed on her head, making her one of the most hunted women in America, but she remained unfazed, driven by a deep, unshakable faith in her mission. The Civil War erupted in 1861, a collision fueled by the very institution Harriet Tubman had fought against for a decade. Seeing the conflict as a divine opportunity to finally destroy slavery across the nation, Tubman immediately offered her services to the Union forces. Her intimate knowledge of the Southern terrain, coupled with her unwavering courage, made her an invaluable asset. Roles in the Union Army: nurse, scout, and spy. Nurse, she tended to the sick and wounded black soldiers and the newly freed people, utilizing her knowledge of herbal remedies and providing unwavering care and comfort in grueling field hospitals. Cook and laundress, she worked tirelessly to ensure basic necessities were met for the troops. Scout and spy, this was her most dangerous and unique role. Her experience as a conductor meant she was unparalleled at moving secretly through Confederate territory. She established a vital intelligence network using the local enslaved population, who trusted her completely, to gather information on Confederate troop movements, supply lines, and fortifications. The Combahee River Raid, a general in skirts. In June 1863, Tubman cemented her place in military history by becoming the first woman to lead an armed military operation in the United States. Working with Colonel James Montgomery and a force of black Union soldiers, she personally planned and guided a daring raid along the Combahee River in South Carolina. The objective was just to destroy Confederate supply lines and free the enslaved people working on the plantations. Tubman's intelligence was flawless. As the Union boats approached, the signal was given, and hundreds of enslaved people rushed toward the riverbanks, leaving their master's property and rushing toward freedom. The raid was a stunning success. In a single night, the Union force, led by Tubman's precise guidance, managed to liberate more than 750 enslaved people, a massive exodus that crippled the local Confederate infrastructure. This triumph underscored the immense value of her espionage work and the profound depth of her dedication to her people's liberation. After this victory, her legend grew even larger. She was hailed as a true military leader, a general in skirts. When the Civil War ended in 1865 and slavery was abolished, Harriet Tubman returned to Auburn, New York. Though the great fight was won, her work was far from over. She may have been hailed as the Moses of her people, but she received little pay or recognition for her years of service as a spy and scout. She spent her later decades engaged in relentless humanitarian work, often struggling financially herself, the fight for women's rights. Having fought for the freedom of her race, Tubman naturally extended her passion to the fight for gender equality. She became a prominent figure in the women's suffrage movement, speaking at rallies and conventions alongside leaders like Susan B. Anthony. Tubman used her powerful life story as proof of women's strength and ability, arguing that if a woman could lead hundreds out of bondage, she was certainly capable of exercising her right to vote. She championed the cause until her health failed, ensuring the freedom she fought for would extend to all citizens, regardless of race or sex. Humanitarian work and final years. Harriet's deep compassion never wavered. She spent her meager earnings and raised funds to establish the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged and Indigent Negroes in Auburn, New York. This was her final mission, to provide a safe, caring haven for elderly and sick former slaves who had nowhere else to go. Her home became a testament to her lifelong commitment to service, a place of peace and dignity for those who had endured so much hardship. Despite her fame, she lived the rest of her life in relative poverty, relying on friends, speaking fees, and a small military pension granted many years later. She was universally respected and admired, however, a living icon of American courage. A symbol of freedom. On March 10, 1913, Harriet Tubman passed away at her home, surrounded by friends and family. She was estimated to be around 92 years old. Her death was not an end, but a final, powerful affirmation of her legacy. Born a slave named Minty, she died a national hero named Harriet, leaving behind a profound challenge to all who would follow. She made the ultimate journey to freedom 19 times, once for herself and 18 times for others. She became more than a historical figure. She is a timeless symbol of courage, resilience, and unyielding hope. The North Star that guided her through the darkness of slavery now shines for all who seek justice. Her life stands as a bold, unwavering truth that the pursuit of liberty, even in the face of death, is the highest human endeavor. The power of courage and one woman's legacy. The life of Harriet Tubman is a magnificent truth. She proved that one woman's courage can change the destiny of hundreds. She didn't just escape slavery, she returned time and again into the jaws of death to lead her people to the light of freedom. Her 13 perilous missions and her role as a spy and military leader during the Civil War irrevocably altered the course of history. Today, her memory is not an inherited property, but an investment. Statues and honors. Statues and monuments of Harriet Tubman stand across the United States, paying tribute to her unwavering resolve and unparalleled leadership. She is remembered not only as an abolitionist, but also as a champion for women's rights, who always stood with the vulnerable. The $20 bill. The U.S. Treasury planned to honor her services by placing her portrait on the $20 bill, making her the first Black woman to appear on U.S. currency. This plan serves as proof of her enduring importance to the nation. Final call. Freedom is worth fighting for. Harriet Tubman's story is not just history, it is a reminder that freedom is always worth fighting for. Her life teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the commitment to do what is right despite that fear. Her journey from destitution to liberty, from enslavement to a national hero, is a powerful and timeless beacon for every generation, inspiring us to stand against oppression.